Spoiler alert, I'm going to show in this video how you would be a fool to go to a listing agent to purchase a home without your own representation. Stand by for that. Who am I? I'm Kory Martinelli. Together with my wife, Bonnie, we own a family-run, local real estate team based out of Coeur, Idaho. We're one of the top producing real estate teams in the entire state, and Bonnie is in the top 1% of all real estate agents in the entire country in terms of production and sales. So what I'm about to share with you comes from years of experience, many transactions, and we work both sides of the table. We sell homes and we buy homes for our clients. And I'm going to give you some inside information that's going to help you determine whether or not you should go to a listing agent to purchase a home. So let's get into it. I'm going to address some of the more common misunderstandings that we're seeing since the NAR settlement. One of the more common misunderstandings, and it's not necessarily a misunderstanding, but it's a point of conflict, and it's the fact that you have to sign a representation agreement with a buyer's agent before you ever go into a house. And that's a fact. That is part of the new settlement. What this does is it forces agents and clients to come to terms on what the services are going to cost. And before they ever get going on seeing houses, they have to have that established. And honestly, this should already have been the normal way things are done. And let me explain. If you're one who shows up on the front porch to see a house and the first time you've been introduced to your real estate agent is there on the front porch, you're a fool. You should have already invested time and research into that real estate agent before you ever decided to go look at homes with them. You need to understand who your agents are. You need to vet them. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to sign a contract on the first time I look at a home. That's like marrying somebody without dating them. It's marriage on a first date, right? And again, I don't advocate that. I don't think that you should be marrying your real estate agent on a first date. You should court your real estate agent. You need to do more than just pick somebody off of YouTube or pick somebody because Aunt Martha recommended them. You need to sit down with at least one and you need to vet them. You need to ask them the tough questions. Questions that you might want to ask. How long have you been a real estate agent? That's number one. Number two, how many transactions have you actually done in that time that you've been a real estate agent? One that's really important that I don't think a lot of people ask is, how long have you lived in the community in which you're going to guide me in? A lot of the real estate agents in our market, the majority of them in our market right now, have been here no longer than the past 4 years. They came here during the COVID boom and moved here and decided to jump on the real estate bandwagon. And they haven't even lived here that long, and they're claiming to be real estate experts in our market. You need to be aware of that. So you need to vet your real estate agent. Don't just show up at a front door and sign a contract. Nobody is recommending that as good advice. If you decide that you're not going to sign a contract to go into a home, what you're saying is that you're going to go directly to the listing agent. So where we first talked about, not marrying somebody on the first date, when you go and find a house that you want to act on, you're getting the agent that came with that house. That's a prearranged marriage. You get whoever that agent is, and you haven't even had a chance to vet them. Next issue that we hear coming out of this NAR settlement, you'll hear this: I refuse to pay for a real estate agent out of my own pocket, because there's some misinformation out there where you're hearing the media say,
buyers now have to pay real estate agents out of their own pocket.
The only reason you would pay for your buyer's agent out of your own pocket is if the seller and the listing brokerage didn't pay that commission. The way it was done before the NAR settlement is the listing brokerage would go to the seller and say, hey, we charge a 6% fee. We're going to split that two ways. One half goes to us and one half goes to the buyer brokerage. And that was negotiable. It could have been 3% on each end. It could have been 2.5% on each end. It was always negotiable. And it's still that way now. And I want to show you something in the current buyer representation agreement. And again, this is the agreement that you're going to sign before you ever go into a house. There's a section in there that says the buyer, that's you, instructs your broker, the buyer broker, to seek to obtain this fee through the transaction paid by the seller or the listing brokerage. If the fee cannot be obtained through the seller or the listing brokerage, the buyer will be responsible for that fee stated above. So again, that's in the new contract, and that wording comes out of the old contract. It has always been the case that you, the buyer, have to make up the difference of whatever the buyer broker cannot get from the listing broker. So this should not come as news to you. Now, let's talk about another point of contention that we've heard coming out of this NAR lawsuit, and that is where people say, well, I've heard that sellers don't have to pay agents anymore. I will say there was a requirement in the MLS. So this was a NAR rule. It was called the compensation, let me get this term right, the cooperative compensation model rule. And what this rule stated was if a seller wanted to access the MLS, they had to offer a buyer's side brokerage fee. And now it could have been as minimum of $1, but they had to have something to offer the buyer broker in order to use the MLS. If they offered zero, they could not use the MLS. That has now gone away. That's part of the settlement. So sellers do not have to offer anything if they want to use the MLS. So that's where I think a lot of people are getting confused. Sellers don't have to offer anything to get onto the MLS anymore. Understand that 90% of all real estate transactions are done with two agents. It's a buyer and a seller broker. 90%. So if you're a seller and you decide that you do not want to offer the brokerage fee for the buyer, you're excluding 90% of your market. So just understand that buyers are still going to seek out getting paid commission for their broker through the seller. And if the seller says, go pound sand, I'm not paying you for your broker, the buyers are probably going to tell the seller, go pound sand, I'm not looking at your house. We'll see how all that works out, but my insider prediction is that this is going to really end up being a big nothing because most people don't have the money to pay their own agent, so they're going to seek to get that through the listing brokerage. And if the listing brokerage and seller don't offer it, they put themselves at a huge disadvantage because they're excluding 90% of the buyer pool. And that brings us to our main topic. I am now going to explain to you why it's foolish for you to go to a listing agent to purchase a home. The first thing that's foolish is you put yourself at a competitive disadvantage. When you say, I don't need a buyer broker, you are now your own representation. So you have to know what you're doing. And what is it that you're going to do? I'm going to put up on the screen right here for you the duties, and this is not a very detailed list. It's just basically a down and dirty list that I created to show you what a real estate agent does. And it's basically the iceberg analogy, and you can see that the top part of the iceberg, the part that's visible, this is what most people associate buyer's agents doing. They prepare the buyer to purchase, they get them pre-approved, they schedule properties for the buyer, they attend the showings with the buyer, and then they submit an offer. Well, once they submit the offer, that's where the real activity comes in, the stuff that's below the water. If you look at these items here, there's any number of items here that if a DIY buyer forgets to do them, it falls out of escrow. You also put yourself in a competitive disadvantage as a DIY buyer right up front because you don't have access to the MLS. People say, well, that's a bunch of crap. We should have access to the MLS. And my answer is no, you do not deserve to have access to the MLS. And let me explain. Imagine that you wanted to go shoot your gun here in Coeur d'Alene and you went to a local gun club. And we've got several gun clubs here that have rifle ranges, they have pistol ranges, and they have all the equipment to clean your weapons and so forth. Imagine you just wanted to go to one of these clubs and you wanted to use their rifle range. But they're not going to let you in unless you're what? A member. Members pay the dues to grow and maintain that range. And you have no privilege, no right to use something that you are not a member of. Well, that's what the MLS is. The MLS is a proprietary system paid for and maintained by who? Realtors, members, the National Association of Realtors. That's our gun club. We pay our dues for that MLS. If you don't pay dues for that MLS, you have no right to use it. And it's part of the value that a real estate agent brings to the table when they represent you. You now have access to the MLS. In fact, when you work with us, when you work with Bonnie and I, we will actually grant you a portal into Bonnie's MLS where you can search all you want. That's part of the value we bring to you. And for you to expect that you should have the MLS, it's just flat wrong. Now, if you say, I don't need a buyer's agent, I'm going to represent myself, the way you're already at a competitive disadvantage is how do you find the homes that you want to see? There's three ways. The first way is you're going to hopefully find open houses. Okay, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The second way is you're going to drive around town looking for real estate signs in front yards, and you're going to call the agent that way. The other way that most people are going to do it is they're going to go onto a secondary site like Zillow or Redfin, and they're going to research homes that they want to see. So I want you to imagine that you are in an active mode and you want to go now find a home. And you've decided, I want to go look at homes on Saturday afternoon. You probably want to have at least 5, maybe 10 homes that you're going to look at. The first reality dose that you're going to get on what a real estate agent provides is when you try to coordinate 10 different listings in one day. Because you're going to have to first find the real estate agent that is selling that house. Remember, you're going directly to the listing agent. You've got to dig up their number. And if you're using Zillow, don't hit Premier Agent. Remember, a Premier Agent is somebody that's paying money to be in front of you. They're paying a lot of money to be the Premier Agent. That is not the listing agent. So you've got to go past that, find the listing agent, call the listing agent, and hopefully you get a call back from the listing agent. Because remember, you've got 10 homes that you want to schedule for Saturday. I'm telling you guys, it's a mess. Now, how does it work for us on the buyer agent side with MLS? The MLS has a proprietary system called Showing Time, and all the agents put in their information about their houses into the Showing Time computer, and I will type in all the criteria for my client. They want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, no stairs, no HOA, and it will spit out all the homes that are available in the neighborhoods that we've already talked about. I then have 10 homes now, right? And none of them have HOAs because I've told the computer to exclude those. You don't know if the homes you're scheduling have HOAs or not because you can't find that information on Zillow unless it's made obvious by the listing agent. So anyway, to get back to my point, where you're at a disadvantage is trying to schedule all of those listings by yourself. I simply go into the MLS. I have my calendar over here. I know that between the hours of 10 and 4, I want to fill that calendar. So I bring up all those 10 listings on the MLS and I see, okay, they all have availability. So I just drag them over into the time slots that I want. I don't even have to call the agent. The agent's already set on Showing Time when those homes are available. Within 10 to 20 minutes, I have my Saturday schedule set up and I'm going to go show my client those homes. Meanwhile, you're still waiting for phone calls back from 5 of the agents that haven't called you back. And I'm going to tell you how a conversation goes with a listing agent because we've had the same thing happen with us just this week. Bonnie got a phone call from a DIY buyer. And the DIY buyer said, I'd like to see your listing Tuesday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And Bonnie rightfully asks, are you being represented? Because we don't want to step on the toes of another agent that's representing this lady. And she says, no, quote, I'm trying to save costs. And right away, Bonnie's just, her heart's breaking for this lady because she's not going to save costs. Bonnie is going to end up, if she takes this offer from this lady and we go under contract, Bonnie's going to get paid. She's going to double end it. She's going to get paid the commission that she has for listing it, and then the commission for representing this lady who doesn't bring her agent. I'll get more into that here in just a minute. But Bonnie says to the lady, have you ever navigated a transaction on your own? No, I have not. So already the red flags are flying. This lady has no ability or knowledge on how to get her home through the escrow process without an agent. Now, on the listing side, listing agents are going to get these phone calls day in and day out about their homes, and they're going to get so frustrated with these calls that what they're going to do is they're going to say, if you want to see the home, we're going to do an open house on Saturday. And you can expect this as a DIY buyer to be the norm. And what's going to happen is you're going to call and say, I want to see this house Tuesday at 4, and the agent's going to say, we're having an open house on Saturday. You're welcome to come. And when you come, please make sure that you have your pre-approval from your bank, and we will be happy to entertain any offers if you want to go from there. So what just happened to you, the DIY buyer? You just got bottlenecked, forced into seeing a house on Saturday during an open house with 10 to 20 other people that want to see the house on that day as well. So what's going to happen is, let's say there's 15 people that want to see that house on Saturday. They all show up. And let's say that there's 5 of them that want to offer on the house. What just happened to you, the DIY buyer? You were just purposely put into a competitive bid situation. You are at a competitive disadvantage right there because you just got choked into offering on a home with several other buyers on purpose because the listing agent did not want to show you the home on Tuesday when you asked to see it. Now, had you had a real estate agent on Tuesday, let's say it was Bonnie would have set that appointment up for 4 o'clock. We would have went and saw the house. You would have said, hey, I want to put an offer in. We would have got an offer in on Saturday evening. We would have looked at the home on Tuesday, put the offer in by Tuesday evening, and we would have had in that contract, we want to reply back by Wednesday at 5 o'clock. And at that point, the seller has a decision to make. If they don't reply back to our offer by 5 o'clock on Wednesday, they risk losing us. And Bonnie will make it more than evident that we are a strong buyer. She's going to have her pre-approval letter for our buyer if they have a loan. I'm going to tell you something else Bonnie's going to have on that contract when we submit it. When we submit it, she's going to have comps. She's going to pull comparative analysis on other properties similar to that one within the last 6 months to make sure that our buyer is paying the fair market value and no more. You go to the open house and you're going to submit an offer without the advice of an agent. Do you know how to run comps? Do you even know if you're going to pay the fair market value? So what I've just painted for you is a picture, and it's a real picture of how you put yourself at a competitive disadvantage by going straight to the listing agent. And let me just go a little bit further. Remember those 5 offers that were submitted on that open house? Let's say that you don't get that home. Somebody got it. Who else didn't get that home? There were 4 other people. Those are your 4 competitors that are going to move on to the next house. And guess what you all are going to do? You're going to go to the next open house and you're going to go through the same thing. It is not an efficient way for you to pursue homes. You need to see homes, especially in our competitive market. When they come on the market, you need to get into them within a day or 2. You don't want to be bottlenecked and forced into an open house where you're going to most likely end up in a competitive bid situation and you're going to pay more for that house than you really should. Okay, so that's the first reason that you are foolish to go to a listing agent. The second reason that you're foolish to go to a listing agent is Idaho is what's called a caveat emptor state, or a buyer beware state. And what does that mean? That means that the responsibility to investigate the home and make sure that the home is in good condition is on the buyer. It's not on the seller. And yes, sellers do fill out property disclosures, and they ethically are supposed to fill it out correctly and not lie about the condition of the home. But you, as a buyer, should understand that you don't trust that. You need to, as Reagan said, trust but verify, right? So you, as a DIY buyer, need to inspect that home and make sure that that home is acceptable, because at some point, the listing agent is going to come to you and they're going to say, hey, your inspection contingency is up. You've had your 5 days, your 7 days, your 10 days to inspect the home. And if you want to move forward in this contract, you need to sign right here on this dotted line that you're going to take the home as is. Remember, you've had time to inspect the home. Are you going to take it as is? Or do you know of conditions in that home and then you're going to ask the seller to correct them before you sign on that line? So as a DIY buyer, remember, you are on your own. Even though you go to the listing agent, you don't have that listing agent representing your best interest. They are representing their seller. They're not going to coach you on how to tear down their seller. So again, going back to that iceberg analogy, all those things that need to get done, some of those things in there require you to investigate the home. And another dose of reality that you're going to have when you're a DIY buyer, let's say that you do manage to get an inspector to inspect that home and they find mold in the attic. Do you know how to get a bid on that to find out how much it costs to mitigate the mold? Do you know who to contact? And I'm going to tell you that a good real estate agent in our market, and I'm going to use Bonnie as an example, they not only have the contractors in their phone on who to call when there's mold found or a crack in the foundation or a failed septic system or there's roots in a sewer line. Whatever the situation, Bonnie knows the contractor to call. But even better than that, good agents get those contractors out to the house within that inspection period because those contractors appreciate Bonnie because Bonnie does what? She gives them a lot of business. She's been in the market long enough to establish not only relationships with these contractors, first name relationships. When she calls a roofer to come out and inspect the roof. Hey, Brian, it's Bonnie Martinelli. And Brian's like, hey, Bonnie, how you doing? And she's going to say, is it possible that you can get out in the next day or two to walk a roof for us and give us an estimate on what it's going to cost to replace this roof? He's going to make it a point to come out and help her. So there's value by having an established agent represent you, and that's one of them. Okay, so caveat emptor, buyer beware state. When you're a DIY buyer and you go to a listing agent, it's on you to investigate that home because you're going to have to at some point sign on a dotted line that you're taking the house as is. You can't come back and say, I didn't know this about the house. So understand that. All right. The third reason that you are foolish to go to a listing agent to purchase a home is you don't get representation. So let me explain to you the two types of representation that you get by going to a listing agent. You are either a customer where they have no fiduciary responsibility to represent you at all, and anything you say can and will be used against you. You have no protection other than that agent has a duty to be honest and treat you respectfully and facilitate that transaction. And what facilitate means is you have to fill out the purchase and sale agreement, give it to the listing agent, and they facilitate it by passing it on to the seller. But they are not facilitating by telling you how to fill that thing out. So when you're a customer and you have no representation, you have very little help at all. The other type of agency or relationship that you would have by going to a listing agent is what's called limited dual agency. And the key word here is limited. By law, a real estate agent who's going to represent the seller and the buyer at the same time, they cannot show favoritism to either. They have to be neutral, and they're limited in the type of representation that they can offer to each other. They can't help each other tear the other down. So again, you're back in a position where you need to investigate this house during the inspection period. Can the selling agent tell you how to attack the home? They shouldn't do that. They're not doing their seller any favors, and by law, they can only promote non-conflicting interests. They can say, hey, you need to do an inspection, but they can't say, hey, you need to inspect the sewer. You need to inspect the septic. You need to inspect the water if there's a well. You need to inspect the foundation. You need to inspect for mold. You need to inspect for radon. And again, this all falls on you. So you need to understand the relationship that you're going to be in with a listing agent. And the best that you can hope for is they're going to facilitate the transaction for you, and they might lay out for you, these are the things you need to do, but they can't coach you and tell you how to do those things. So again, you're at a competitive disadvantage, and you don't get the representation that you deserve. And this brings us to point number 4. So we've already established that you aren't going to get the representation that you deserve, but guess what? You're going to pay for it. So the fourth reason that you're foolish to go to a real estate listing agent to purchase a home is because they're going to double end that deal. And if you go, again, to an RE16, this is a seller representation agreement. You're going to notice that I've highlighted the section 6 where it says brokerage fee, and then I've actually pulled out that highlighted section. And I want to take you to the second paragraph, and where I've highlighted it, it says, in the event that there is no cooperating brokerage, selling brokerage, in this case that means the buyer agent, where there is no buyer agent, the broker shall receive what? The full brokerage fee. So when you go to a listing agent without your representative, they get the money that would have gone to your representative, if that makes sense. So when I tell you there's a high likelihood that you're not going to save money, that's what I'm talking about. Now, there are a few DIY buyers that are crafty enough to come to the listing agent and say, look, you don't have to pay for my agent, so I want you to reduce the price of the home by 2.5% or 3% because you don't have to pay my agent. Well, let's look at it from the other side of the table. You're asking the seller to reduce their price so that they can now have you represent yourself. That's like saying, I want you to reduce the price and just wait for the train to crash. You guys, you are at such a disadvantage as a DIY buyer to that seller. You are a liability to that seller. And if I'm representing my seller as the listing broker, I am going to advise them that you are a liability because we've seen it happen. Unless you truly know what you're doing, you are at some point going to drop the ball during escrow and it's going to fall out of escrow. And back to my point, if you think you're going to save money as a DIY buyer by going to the listing broker, keep in mind they're going to keep the fee that you would have paid to your representative. You have not saved any money and you didn't get representation. And then I just want to close with this. If you learn nothing else from this video, yeah, I showed you how you're most likely not going to save money by going to the listing agent, but I want you to remember this. As a DIY buyer, you're a liability. You are 5150. In cop terms, we call that a danger to yourself and danger to others. How are you a danger to yourself? You, by going out on your own, you didn't have access to the MLS. You didn't see every property that you could have seen. Even though you worked Zillow as hard as you could, you did not see every property you could have seen if there was an agent like Bonnie researching properties for you. So you were already at a disadvantage there. You were bottlenecked into open houses by the listing agent. And when you got there, you were in a competitive bid situation because there were 3 to 5 other people offering, and you had to escalate your price to get that house. You also put yourself at a disadvantage because when you offered on that house, you did not have a comparative analysis on what is the fair market value of the property you're offering on. That's what Bonnie does. When we go to put an offer in, she runs a comparative market analysis to make sure that we're not overpaying for the house. So you're a danger to yourself in those ways. Then you're a danger to yourself in that you may or may not know how to inspect a home. Even if you know how to inspect a home, do you have the pull in the community, get those contractors out there to give you the bids so that you can have the price reduced or have the problem fixed? The answer is most likely no. In our market, contractors are hard to find, and good real estate agents have relationships with those contractors and can get them out there in a compressed time. So you're a liability to yourself by representing yourself for that reason. You're a liability to the seller when we sit down with our sellers, and let's say we have 2 offers, and we're going to put them out there. One has a real estate agent and one doesn't, right? That's your DIY buyer. The one with the real estate agent has the price of the home and they're asking for the commission for that agent, right? What do you think our seller's going to do? They're going to take our advice. They're going to pay the agent on the other end to get that thing over the finish line. And you, as the DIY buyer, are a danger, a liability to the seller, and you better get used to not getting your offers accepted for that very reason. So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit more about what you would be getting into as a DIY buyer who goes directly to the listing agent. You deserve good representation. Don't forfeit your representation thinking you're going to save money. You are not only not going to save money, you're going to severely cripple yourself in the transaction, and it's probably going to fall through escrow anyway. All right, next video is going to be for the DIY buyer who thinks they're going to do better by hiring an attorney to do their transaction. So stand by for that. Thanks for watching, you guys. Bye now.